Well, good morning once again. This is the last week in our Spring Fever series. And today, the topic is rain or shine. How do we use this phrase, rain or shine? We say we're going to have this event, rain or shine, right? The way we usually use this phrase is we say, I'll be there, rain or shine. Let me ask you something. Do you have any rain or shine friends? There are not many. There are not many rain or shine friends. And if you find a friend who is a rain or shine friend, somebody who's going to be there when you need them, come rain or shine, come difficulty, come obstacles, whatever the case may be, and they are there for you, you better thank God for that friend, because that is a treasure in your life. I have a couple of rain or shine friends. I have this one friend. It's absolutely amazing. He shows up. I'm not even expecting it, but he keeps up with what's going on in my life, and from time to time, when I need a friend, he shows up. He's there. I remember when Lene's dad passed away about 2 or 3 years ago. We were in Montgomery at the funeral, and this guy is there. He shows up. I couldn't believe it. He walked in the door, and I was like, what do you, I mean, I couldn't, your brain can't put that together sometimes, when you see somebody who's out of place. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm here for you. Man, I'm your friend. And then I have another friend who's always texting me. He's always calling me. He called me this week. He always keeps in touch. He never lets me go. He never lets go of our friendship. And our friendship is 30 years old maybe. Yeah, 30 years old. For 30 years, this guy has kept up with me. He's called me. He has been the one who, in our relationship, has been the glue that has held that relationship together. He is a rain or shine friend. I am very fortunate to have a wife who is a rain or shine spouse. It doesn't matter. Through thick and thin, no matter what the case may be, no matter what hardships we may go through, she is always there. I'm very fortunate to have Lene, because she is a rain or shine spouse. We've never talked about divorce in our marriage. The subject has never even come up. We don't talk about it. We don't think about it. It's just not in our vocabulary. It's an amazing relationship, and I have to say it's because of her. I told her the other day, I said, I'm so glad that God gave you to me for my wife, because otherwise I think I would have never found anybody who could put up with me. And that's the truth. So you think I'm a good guy, and you think I'm nice, pastor, and I love Jesus and all that, but see, you don't have to live with me. And you don't know what I'm like at home. And but Lene has cultivated me over the years, and I have gotten better and better. And I tell people that whatever social skills I have, whatever kindness there is in me, it's because of Lene and Jesus. And that is the truth. But most people are not rain or shine kind of people. And Jesus said this in John 16. He said, Do you now believe? He's talking to his disciples. He had been speaking to them in parables, and now he's speaking plainly to them. And he says to them, do you now believe? A time is coming, and in fact has come, when you will be scattered, each to your own home. Now he's talking about the crucifixion, and he knows what's about to happen. He knows that the shepherd will be struck, as he said, and the sheep will be scattered, and he knows that whenever the crucifixion happens, that every one of his disciples will be scattered, and they will all leave him alone. And they all left him. But John showed up at the cross. John showed up with the women and Jesus' mom at the cross. And But all the rest of the disciples scattered, and they stayed scattered. And he knew what they would be feeling after they had left him. They knew the shame, and that they would all feel like that they were cowards, and they would all feel this guilt, this tremendous guilt. And so he's talking to them plainly, and he says, "You will leave me all alone, yet I am not alone, for my Father is with me." He's making the distinction between people and God. People, the nature of people is they will leave you all alone. People that you never thought would leave you at some point will leave you alone. Anybody ever experienced that? I have. People that you thought, oh my gosh, they are a friend forever. They will never leave me. But yet people let you down. And that's the nature that we have. That is our sin nature. That is human nature. And Jesus was saying, "You will leave me alone." He said, "Yet I am not alone, for my Father is with me." God's nature is that he will never leave you. Now, in Deuteronomy, Moses he came before the children of Israel, and he said to them, he said, "I cannot go with you into the promised land." And you can imagine what a fearful thing that was for those people to hear, because Moses had been leading them this whole time. They depended on Moses. Moses was the man who went and met with God and came back and told them what they were going to do. And he was a great leader because he was led by God. And here Moses is coming out and he's giving them this big news: "I'm not going with you into this land where there are walled cities and giants and armies and all this stuff. I'm not going to be there to lead you. Joshua's going to lead you." And so this is what Moses told them. He said, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them," because of the people of the land. He said, "For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." This is where this comes from. It comes out of Deuteronomy. Moses says, God will never leave you nor forsake you. This is the nature of God. He cannot let go. It's not in his nature to let go. He will never leave you or forsake you. No one can pluck you out of his hand, the scripture says. And that means that even you can't pluck yourself from his hand. His grip is there. There's no way for him to let you go. It's his nature. You cannot divide this part of God's nature from him. It just does not happen. He will never leave us or forsake us. This is what Jesus said. He said, "And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age." He's talking about this life, this world that we're in. He says, "I will be with you always." Always. We're going to get back to the John 16 scripture. Remember just a few verses ago? He said, "You will leave me. You will be scattered to your own home, and you will all leave me. Yet I am not alone, because God, my Father, is with me." This is the rest of that. It says, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace." He's foretelling what's going to happen, so that when it happens to them, they will know that he knew about it, and he loved them, and he accepted them, even when he knew that these things would happen. He says, "I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble." Can I get a witness on that? In this world you will have trouble. If you don't know that, you have not been around very long. In this world, and isn't that a comforting thing for God to say? In this world, I'm kidding. It's not that comforting, all right? But for him to say, in this world, Jesus to tell you, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart. The King James says, be of good cheer. Take courage. Be full of joy, because I have overcome the world. Let's look at that again. "I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. He's trying to encourage his disciples before the fact. And he's saying that in this world you'll have trouble. In this world you'll have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. I'll tell you, the first time I read the scripture years ago, I thought, well, good for you, Jesus. I mean, this is what I was thinking. Good for you. You have overcome the world. What about me? How does this pertain to me? I'm supposed to be full of joy because you have overcome the world? And in the meantime, I'm going to have to endure the trouble myself. How does that connect? I don't understand. But as time went by and as I began to read Scripture more and become more acquainted with God, I realized what he was saying. And it's this. Jesus said to his disciples, he said, I am with you now. He said, but I will be in you. I'm with you now, but I will be in you. I'm coming to live in you. And he said, gosh, there was something on my mind and it just left. He said, I'm with you. He said, behold, I stand at the door and I knock. He said, if anyone will open the door, he said, I will come into them. And this is a strange thing for him to say. I will come into them and I will dine with them. I'll come into them and I will eat supper with them. That's kind of a strange thing to say. I heard Bishop T.D. Jakes. I love Bishop T.D. Jakes. I heard him this week, an interview with him, and he was talking about the bread and the wine. When Jesus took the bread at the Last Supper, it's unleavened bread. It's not like we buy in the store. It's unleavened bread, and you have to rip it apart. And so Jesus took the bread and he ripped it into pieces. And he said, this is my body, which is broken. How broken was his body? It was broken. He took the bread and he ripped it and he said, this is my body, which is broken for you. He said, take and eat this bread. Do this and remember me by it. Then he took the cup. Now you and I, when we want a glass of wine, we just go to the store and we buy some wine, right? Well, you might go to the store and buy wine. I don't buy wine. I don't drink wine. As the old saying goes, lips that touch wine will never touch mine. You remember that? Anybody ever heard that? I'm just kidding. I don't have anything against wine. I just don't like the taste. But we don't really understand wine. We go to the store and we buy wine. We go to the liquor store and we get whatever we need. It's already made for us. But all these guys knew exactly what it took to make wine. They knew that you have to crush the grape. They know that every fiber of that grape has to be crushed and trampled on and then pressed and squeezed until all the goodness has come out of it. So Jesus is telling us, he said, I will come into you and I will eat with you. You and I will have dinner together when I come into you. So you may think, well, how can Jesus really relate to me? How can he relate to me? I'm afraid of everything. He's God. How can he relate to someone who's afraid? Scripture says that his sweat was as drops of blood in the garden. He knows what it is to be afraid. He knows what it is to have something in front of you and you don't want to go. You don't want to walk into that. He knew what he was walking into, and his sweat was as drops of blood. He was in anguish. He was in agony. He knows what it's like. You might say, well, I have shame and guilt and things like that I deal with. How can God know about my shame and my guilt? He was stripped naked. and he was nailed to a cross, and he was lifted up. And his followers, the women who followed him in his ministry were there. His mother was there. Family members, people that knew him, people that hated him. And he knows what it's like to have shame. So you might say, well, how about sin? How can Jesus know about sin? The scripture says he was tempted, but he never sinned. How can he know about what it's like to have the pain of sin in your life? Well, it says that he became sin for us. Anybody know? He became sin so that we could become the righteousness of God. You see the exchange there? He becomes what we are. He becomes that. Are you a liar? He became a lie for you. Are you full of pride? He became pride for you. Whatever sin. Lust, is lust your sin? He became lust. He knows what it is to suffer. He knows what it is to be broken. He knows what it is to be crushed. And there's nothing that we can go through, ever, that we can go through, that God is not a rain or shine God in. He is a rain or shine God. He never lets go. He never gives up. It is not in his nature to leave anybody behind. This is who we serve. This is how we interact with our God. There is a process, and it goes rain and then shine. Rain or shine. It's a process. And Jesus went through that process. He was tortured, and then he was crucified, and then he died and he was buried in the tomb. There is a process, and there are times when we feel that pain, right? We feel pain, and then it can be torturous for us. And then there comes a sort of death, a part in the process where we feel like all hope is lost. Everything is gone. It's hopeless. There is no road forward for us. There's no path for us. And that's part of the process. But if you have a rain or shine God, there is always, when I say always, I mean always, there is always a resurrection and a victory for us. I went through a period in my life, a time when I was in my early 20s, and you've probably heard me talk about this before, and I talk about it a lot because that's how I came to know Jesus. And I didn't understand why at the time. I just could not understand the why. All I knew is that I was in terrible pain, and I did not want to go through that pain anymore. It was so bad that I wanted to check out. I wanted to end the pain, and the only way I knew in the beginning, the only way I could think of to get rid of the pain was to commit suicide. And I began to think about that and think about the ways that I might do that. And the pain was just, it was that bad. And I just did not want to go through that anymore. And then, and through that process, God, I mean, and it's a divine intervention. But through that whole thing, God began to speak to me. I began to have dreams, and God would appear to me in dreams, and He would speak to me. And then He began to speak to me just while I was awake. He would speak to me, and I recognized that this was God. And I wanted I wanted a way to deal with the pain. And here's how it happened for me. Moment by moment, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, God was in here and He was giving me what I needed at the moment. Because see, He has gone through every single thing that you can imagine. You can't go through anything that He is not familiar with. You can't go through any type of pain that He is not already familiar with. And He's in here, and whenever that pain comes up, He knows exactly what you need at that time. He knows what's going to quench the pain. And in those days, I was in school at Middle Tennessee State in Murfreesboro, and like I said, I didn't understand then why I had to go through all of those things. I didn't understand why it was necessary for me to go and walk Stones River Battlefield. But I would go and I would walk Stones River Battlefield there in Murfreesboro. When I was not in class, rain or shine, I would walk Stones River Battlefield and I would talk to Jesus. Mile after mile after mile, I would talk to Him, and He would talk back to me. And I would bring Him my pain. I would bring Him my anguish, and He always knew exactly what to say to me. And I was being attacked all the time. I was being attacked. The enemy would say to me. He would say, the life that you thought you were going to have, you're not going to have that life. The ministry that you thought you were going to have, you're not going to have that ministry. And not only that, any ministry that you might have will never compare to the ministry you thought you were going to have. The girl that you thought you were going to marry, you're not going to marry her. Ha! You're not going to marry her. And not only that, but you'll never have anybody to compare to her. It's over for you. Your life is going to be like this for the rest of your life. And I would be so down, and I would be so just crushed. Just crushed. And I would go out to Stones River Battlefield, and I would walk. By the way, how many greats is it? One or two? Two great. My great-great-grandfather fought at Stones River on that battlefield. I can go to the hill where he fought. He played the fiddle, and then when it was time to fight, he'd put the fiddle down and he would pick up his gun, and he would fight. And I can go to the place where he was wounded. He was wounded in the head at Stones River Battlefield, and so I would go, but that didn't have anything to do with it. That's just a little trivia about me. So I would go to Stones River Battlefield, and I would walk and I would talk to God. And here's what God would say: No, you're not going to have a ministry like you thought you were going to have. Your ministry is going to be better than you thought you were going to have. And no, you're not going to marry that girl. I've got somebody you can't believe what I have for you. And I tell you what, I would get so excited walking Stones River Battlefield. I would get so excited walking those trails as God would encourage me, and He would talk to me, and He would tell me these things, and everything He ever told me came true. Everything He ever told me came true. And so He would encourage me. He knew exactly what I needed. He knew the food that I needed. You know, Jesus said, He said, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part with me. And all the thousands that were with Him, they all left. And so Jesus turns to His disciples, the 12, and He says, will you leave me too? And Peter said, where would we go? You alone have the words of life. And so what Jesus is doing is He's saying, listen, here I am. I am in you, and you and I are having dinner together. And whatever it is that you're going through, whatever challenges you have, whatever problems you have in this life, I know exactly what to feed you. I know exactly what word to feed you. He said, I am the bread of life that came down from heaven. He is the word of life. He is the bread of life. He knows exactly what we need at the time we need it. And He gives us exactly what we need whenever we need it. I tell you, it took me 3 years really to get to a point where the pain was not so intense. It was a marathon of pain for me. And after those 3 years passed, it got much better. But I would say that pain lasted probably for almost 10 years in my life, really until I met Lene. And so I dealt with that, and I didn't understand why it was that I had to go through all that, and why it was that it took hours a day reading my Bible and just hours and hours of walking and talking with God to get me past all of that. I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now, because I wouldn't be here now if it weren't for that. I would not know Scripture if it weren't for that. I would not know, this is the most important thing, I would not know Jesus if it had not been for that. That is the most important thing. And I wouldn't know Him. The other day I was having lunch with somebody, and Lene and I were having lunch with this other couple, and we were talking about the Lord, and it seemed like everything that I would say would just bless this guy that I'm sitting across from. He's a friend of mine. And at one point he started crying, and he said, he was just beside himself. How do you know? How do you know this stuff? How do you know? And he was just tears coming down his face. He said, how do you know? He said, did you go to school for this? How did you learn Jesus? How do you know this? And he said, did you go to school? I said, no, I didn't go to school. How do you know this? And he's crying. And it hit me. I walked Stones River Battlefield for 100 miles talking with Jesus. I read my Bible for, hundreds of hours. And that's how I know Him. I didn't get it at school. I got it, one-on-one with Him. And you don't have to go to school to know Jesus. That might be a revelation to some of y'all, but you don't have to go to school to know Jesus. He offers Himself to us freely. One more thing, I just want to say this, that He is a rain or shine God. And for 2 years since we started this church, Lene can tell you, Savannah can tell you, I have struggled. I have really struggled. I thought that that things would go smoother. I thought that we would grow faster. I thought that we would, by this time, 2 years in, I just thought, man, we're just going to take over the whole city with this church. And that's just, that was what I thought. Those were my expectations. But God had a different plan in mind, and His plan is not to go big before you go deep. And He wanted to go deep with me. I thought I knew Him, and I thought I was ready, and I thought that that I could handle success. But it's been hard. It's been very difficult. It's been it just has been. It's been very difficult. And from time to time, I would think about giving up. I would think about it. And after Easter, we had a good Easter service, but I felt like I did not do a good job on Easter. My thoughts were scattered. Didn't feel like I was 100%. I was not doing well that afternoon. And I believe it was that Monday when I just went into my room upstairs, and I closed the door, and I said, Lord, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired. I'm just tired, and I don't want to do it anymore. I would just rather do something else, something that's not so demanding. And I said, what do you say, Lord? What do you say about that? And He showed me my life without the net. That's what just briefly, few moments, He showed me my life without the net. He showed me what it would be like not to stand here on Sunday mornings. He showed me what it would be like not to have you, all of you, in my life. He showed me what it would be like not to have the vision of what this church is going to do. And He showed me what it would be like for all of those people who are in my heart, who I don't even know yet. All those people that this church is going to minister to and help, and the lives that are going to be changed. He showed me what it would be like without that. It was kind of like one of those It's a Wonderful Life moments, you know. I love that movie. But it was kind of like that. And it changed everything for me. And I got up from that couch, and I said, Lord, I know exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to do this for the rest of my life. Everything else, not my family, but everything else, I can let go. But I'm not letting go of this. I'm going to be a rain or shine pastor for the net. I am going to be a rain or shine. A rain or shine minister. If the rain comes, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be a rain or shine person. And it changed everything for me. So I want to leave you with this. You can only be a rain or shine friend to about maybe 3 or 4 people. I mean, seriously. You can only be a rain or shine friend to that many people. I would encourage you to figure out who those people are and be a rain or shine friend to those people. And then don't make promises that you can't keep. Don't make promises you can't keep. I've had people, it makes me so mad too, I'll just be honest with you. I've had people to come here to this church and hug my neck and tell me that this is the be-all, end-all. They are in 100%. They love this church. They love me. They love my family. And everything is great, and they're going to be here until Jesus comes. And a few weeks later, I see them posting pictures on Facebook at their new church. You know? It makes me mad when I see stuff like that. People are wishy-washy. People make promises that they cannot keep. Don't make promises that you can't keep. Just say, I enjoyed the service today, and maybe I'll see you next week. Just be honest. Don't make promises that you can't keep. I have a friend, he says, God is not foolish. He's always telling me that. God is not foolish. Let's not be foolish people. Let's not make promises that we can't keep. And let's be rain or shine people to those people who are close to us. Let's be rain or shine spouses. Let's be rain or shine friends to the people that are closest to us in our lives. And let's open our hearts and let God transform us into His image. He is a rain or shine God. It does not matter. He is always the same, and He never leaves us, and He never forsakes us.